Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining me today here at the SF Summit for AWS. This is What's New in EC2 at Amazon. My name is Art Baudo. I'm a Principal Product Marketing Manager here at AWS, and thanks for joining me today. I'm looking forward to talking to you about our latest updates to EC2. Today, I'm going to cover some of our most recent launches and some of the launches that we're going to do throughout 2022. Thanks for coming along today and joining me. Oh, I want to first start by talking a little bit about the mission and a little bit about EC2 from a high level. What are some of the areas of EC2? So EC2 focus here is to help with compute and networking for our customers. And one of our goals is to make sure we provide businesses and developers with the tools to be able to run their applications and services and virtually any workload on EC2. And our goal is to provide you enough tools that our on-demand compute access is as easy as turning on a light switch. And today, my objective is to talk to you a little bit about why and how we're going to make it easy to turn on that light switch. I'm going to focus today on covering three different areas. This is going to build on EC2's innovation that we have had over the last 15 years. So for those who don't know, or those who do, we had our 15th anniversary in August last year of 2021. And the amount of compute and the breadth and depth of what we have delivered in those 15 years has been phenomenal. Today, I'm going to focus on three areas. First, I'm going to characterize for you a bit about that compute and how we build compute on a global scale and our focus on that. Then I'm going to talk about performance, the security that we develop that's inherent to our Nitro system, and talk to you, of course, a little bit about how we manage that with cost, with a particular focus on price performance. Because after all, what is something that's cheap without having really good performance? So our focus is always on delivering that price per performance ratio. And you'll hear me talk a lot about that throughout the deck today. And then finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about our accelerated compute platforms. These are our platforms in our GPU space. These are the platforms in our inferentia and training. And I'll talk a little bit about the development that we have there and where we're going. And then we'll wrap it up together and I'll draw all of those together for you. And if we have a little bit of time, I'll take some questions at the end as well. Sound good? So let's talk about that compute and the compute on a global scale here at AWS. I'd like to start with this slide talking about the total amount of compute, because I think these numbers are really, really powerful indicators about the breadth and depth that we can offer. There are 60 million new instances that are spun up on Amazon EC2 every single day. And that translates into 700 instances per second. That just goes to show how big the network has to be. And we need this network to be seamless for you. And how have we designed that for our customers to do that? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that scale and size as we go forward here today. So everyone likes a big map of the world, except this is our map of our global regions and availability zones. Today, Amazon has a whopping 26 availability zones and 84 availability zones and 26 regions, already that are out there. We have over 300 CloudFront POPs and 100 Direct Connect POPs that are available. And this is a fully redundant network, so no single link failure can impact the stability of the entire network. Furthermore, these connections, in some cases, are more than 10 kilometers below the surface of the Earth here, in the ocean here, in order to make these connections really happen. With a network like that, we have availability for everyone across the globe. And I want to talk particularly about how we can, even with this availability, get it even closer to you, our customers. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is delivering compute to customers where you need it. And with regions and and availability zones, customers frequently talk to me about latency and a need to have compute delivered to them. Or perhaps you have a situation where you're unable to move some of your on-premise work directly to the cloud, but you want that work to be connected to AWS still. So we have a bunch of different offerings for you that help you deliver that. So first, I'm going to talk about Outposts, and then our local zones and wavelengths. I'm going to do a little bit of an overview of Outposts, and I'm going to follow that up in a slide or two here with some more data on Outposts. But Outposts, I like to think of Outposts as compute on AWS and delivery to you exactly where you want it. So I'm able to deliver that right to your premise. And I'll talk to you how we do that delivery. And then I'm going to talk about our local zones. Local zones are kind of an extension of the regions that AWS has. We currently have 17 local zones that have already been deployed. And this year alone, in 2022, we are going to deploy 32 new local zones. Local zones are typically in major metro areas around the world. The current local zones have been deployed here in the United States, but the 32 local zones will take on a much global perspective as we run through 2022, fully deploying that to customers. In addition, final thing here is AWS Wavelength. AWS Wavelength is like local zones for 5G. So I mentioned before Outposts, and I hinted at I talk a little bit more about Outposts and what they are. Outposts help us bring AWS, like my slide says, on-premise to you. It's the same infrastructure. It's designed by AWS and is supported by AWS. So once this is designed and deployed on your system, AWS takes over responsibility for maintenance of that hardware, and it also gives you the same exact interface as you would if using our on-demand regions or AZs. So the same exact console interface and access to many of the AWS software and features that you know and love that we deliver here at AWS. An AWS Outpost Racks allows you to choose a native variant of it, or we offer you a VMware or Outpost Cloud options on premises as well to deliver that. The console, as I mentioned, allows you to manage and view your resources just like you would manage and view resources on the console for the on-demand and regions that we deliver already. So I talk a little bit here about a single pane in the delivering and accessing the same APIs as AWS. This is key to make sure your experience is seamless using the Outpost Racks. So how do we deliver that to you? And how do we offer it to you? Outpost Racks are fully managed, as I said before, and they're available to you in a variety of form factors. We have everything from a 1U and 2U outpost all the way up to a 42U outpost. So imagine that size and scalability that's available to be connected right to your network. With those, you can access some of our services locally and connect to a broad range of our regions. So this outpost that is delivered to you will then connect to one of our regions, and you'll get that AWS connectivity that we deliver. And for those of you who want to, as I mentioned before, can run VMware in the cloud on those outpost servers. Oh, I talked a little bit about the breadth of our regions. We have these 26 regions. I have 84 availability zones. I offer you local zones, outposts, wavelengths, and compute. This is a really large amount of compute. I wanted to pause for a moment and talk briefly about an area that is expanding in the amount of compute that's required. The amount of compute that's required is unique in the HPC space, also known as the high performance compute space. It's one of these spaces that takes advantage of the breadth and depth of this compute capacity. And so it's just a good example to get started with here. It's one of the fastest growing spaces and one that we have to demand and is demanding of AWS continuous innovation. So what do we deliver in terms of our HPC offerings to you, our customers? So we have some new instances here, and I want to talk about the overall instances as well. So I'm proud to talk that we announced our first HPC branded instance that launched earlier this year, the HPC 6A instances. I'm going to use the next slide to talk about those specific branded instances, but first I just want to highlight the other areas that you can use HPC compute as well. We also offer our C7G instances, which are coming soon, so those are our Graviton-based instances. And later on in today's talk, I'll talk to you a lot more about what we're doing with Graviton, and the performance view gains you have for Graviton, and the preview of Graviton. I'll then talk, we've also launched in the last 6 months our C6i instances, which can be used for HPC as well, and our C6a instances. The C6a instances are obviously what our HPC 6a instances are built off of. Our HPC instances offer, and you're probably wondering why I have, the Elastic Fabric adapter, parallel cluster AWS batch, and Amazon FSx, for Lustre here, because our HPC instances offer those as well as part of that experience. Our goal with HPC is to provide HPC customers with the features that you need and remove those features that you do not. So I talked to you before mentioning our our first HPC branded instance. That's HPC 6a. We launched that earlier in 2022. Those are based off of the AMD processors. We offer up to 96 cores, 384 gigabytes of memory, and 100 gigabytes of networking. These instances, purposely built for HPC, deliver up to 65% better price per performance than our comparable x86-based instances. They're ideal for large scale, and those workloads, whether you're doing anything from weather forecasting to financial analysis, this is what we see these HPC 6a instances being delivered for. Pretty cool, right? So I've talked a lot about the first section of this presentation, a bit about our breadth of compute. Now I'm going to start talking to you about some of the performance, the cost optimizations, and our security elements. I'm going to first start talking to you a little bit about our own architecture, and we're going to talk not in deep detail today about the Nitro system architecture, but I'm going to give you an overview of it, because I think that that's key to understanding how we do innovation at AWS and how we're able to, on the EC2 side, deliver innovation and deliver all of these new instances to you. So, oops, I'm going to fall off the stage. The first thing here is we have a picture of the AWS Nitro system architecture. Okay, this is built from the ground up with our storage. So a traditional hypervisor, and for those who don't know what a hypervisor is, I like to think of a hypervisor as a big scheduler. Say, most of us here checked into a hotel last night, and imagine you have a hotel with only one room. It's really easy to have a scheduler to schedule that one room. If someone shows up and someone's occupying the room, it's pretty obvious you don't have any space for them. But as the hotel gets bigger, the guests come and go, and they may need 3 or 4 days or different things, the complexity of actually scheduling gets a lot more different. The hypervisor for us is like that, but in the cloud, except it's actually scheduling things or everything from our firmware and BIOS, but also the overall architecture. And the key is making sure that that hypervisor is lightweight enough that we are able to offer the best performance in the cloud as well. So we started looking at this, and back in 2012, we started to realize that this traditional hypervisor needed some changes. And what we were going to do is try to deliver and optimize that hypervisor for our customers. So we started that back in 2012, and we launched our more optimized Nitro system architecture in 5 years later in 2017. That started with our C5 instances, excuse me. So how does that translate to you? Our Nitro system is optimized to deliver the best performance in the cloud, but we're also focused on delivering security as well and innovation. Today, I'm going to talk briefly about that performance and the differences that our Nitro system makes to you in performance, but I'm also going to talk briefly about security, not physical security, but the security that we deliver in the cloud as well, in addition to that physical security that we talk about. And then I'm going to talk about how the Nitro system translates into innovation and our innovative instances for you. Okay, so first let me talk about performance. Performance is key. You can't have anything else if I can't deliver performance to you. So the first slide I'm showing here is our Nitro system provides better performance than most other cloud providers. And so you look at this slide, I'm showing you information about Memcache, Nginx web caching, and MySQL benchmarks. And then I show you SpecInt. Why do I show this in this fashion? Because I want to focus in on Memcaching, our Nginx web serving, and MySQL. Why? Because those are real world workloads. Those are what we find our customers are using, and those tend to deliver more accurate representation of the performance needs that customers have in the cloud. okay? And it is in those cases where we are able to consistently provide, through the usage of our Nitro system in our architecture, better performance. And what does that translate to? Let me just read my specific quote on it so I get it right here, because it's kind of powerful. With the Nitro system, the Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud instances deliver up to 10% higher throughput than other major cloud providers running the same CPU. And we deliver with up to 25% additional throughput on some workloads. That is a phenomenal difference versus those competitors. Up to 10% and up to even 25% on other workloads. That is our maniacal focus on innovation. So while our Nitro system provides an overall performance benefit, we also focus on delivering at the component level to you. I'm going to talk about some of those components here as we go forward. So the first thing I want to talk about is Nitro SSDs here. So you think, okay, what does memory have to do with performance? But memory has everything to do with performance and our ability to do this. And our Nitro SSDs, which we just announced and just launched, our Nitro SSDs help walk through how we deliver performance. Nitro SSDs deliver 60% lower I/O latency over commercial SSDs. These also reduce the latency variability by up to 75%. And they're also always encrypted as well. And so, if there is ever a problem, your data is protected and it's delivered at lower latency to you. And that is the impact of our Nitro system as well. And this gets into our development here. So, who and what are using our Nitro system SSDs? The first instance is what's coming soon is our i4i instances. These are powered by the Intel x86 based processors, the Ice Lake processor, and they deliver up to 30% better compute performance than our i3 instances, which are already out. And they offer up to 30 terabytes of additional memory, and they're ideal for a lot of different databases, such as a SQL Server, Oracle, or a NoSQL database, as a matter of fact. And customers who have used these i4i instances have seen and been able to scale their workloads. Okay, but there are two instances where we have already deployed these Nitro SSDs. That's the IM4GN and IS4GEN instances. Both of these instances deliver that 30 terabytes of performance. They both deliver that lower latency that I talked about. But the IS4GN delivers 15% lower cost and up to 48% better compute for storage, while the IM4GN delivers up to 40% better price performance than the prior i3 instances. So all of this is great. Is anybody using this stuff? Sure thing. Let me talk to you briefly about Splunk, who has already started testing this out. Splunk has been one of our early customer adopters on Graviton, and they're a key platform provider that has worked on this right now with us. They have seen up to 50% savings in their usage and decrease in their search time using these Nitro SSDs. Pretty phenomenal, right? So I talked a bit about performance, our focus on that. I'm going to talk a little bit about how our Nitro system enables security. I want to talk to you about our introduction here about one of our new security features, the AWS Nitro TPM. But before I talk about this slide, I do want to also emphasize that we have introduced and announced through our platform, we have end-to-end encryption. So whether you use our Intel, Graviton, or AMD instances, all of them offer encryption here as well. But today, I wanted to talk briefly about how we introduce Nitro TPM. This is a trusted platform module that is going to be introduced here, and keys are protected through Nitro TPM as long as the operating system has booted correctly. If it has not, the keys will remain secure and cannot be decoded until such a time that that happens. Stay tuned for this. Those of you who are particularly interested in this security space, we have a lot of other offerings as well. Now I want to finish this section by talking a little bit about innovation. I talked a lot in the first section about our compute, the breadth and depth of that compute, but that is also here in the total instances. And a lot of you who may have been to AWS sessions before have seen this slide. You probably have never seen the number 500 here, because it's the first time we're able to say that we now have more than 500 instances that are out here. And I will also talk about the rapid innovation that has happened. If you look at the fastest processor, if you had come here 2 years ago, that fastest processor was only 4 gigahertz, and today it's already 4.5 gigahertz. We offer the fastest speed processor in the cloud. In addition, 2 years ago, our networking said only 100 gigabytes per second, and today it's 4 times that at 400 gigabytes. So we have a major changes that have happened. In addition, we've also increased our portfolio in the last several years. Beyond just our AMD, Intel x86 instances, we've complemented that with our Graviton instances, and we also started our Mac launches as well. I'll talk a little bit more about those Mac launches as we go forward here as well. So we offer a broad selection of instances that can be assembled in a lot of different ways. And that's essentially what I'm trying to say to you here. Well, the pace of innovation at Amazon is really hard to comprehend. So I like this slide to use to talk to you about how we have done that over time. So you can see back in 2010 with our introduction of the Zen platform, we don't have a lot of instances here. To today, in 2021, where we introduced and launched our Nitro SSDs. And you can already see where we're started in 2022. We launched the HPC 6A earlier this year, and we will continue with launches all year long here. But also important milestones here are Graviton 2 in 2020, our Inferentia platform that we'll talk about inference and machine learning, and our enhanced storage platforms in particular. So, we offer the broadest choice of processors and architectures. And I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk through each of these and some of our offerings here on those processor offerings. So, Intel. Intel has been with us since the beginning. Intel was our first partner 15 years ago, almost 16 years ago now, and continues to be a strategically important partner to AWS. After 15 years of innovation, we have more than 250 instances that have Intel in them that are in our on-demand cloud right now. Beyond that, along with our recently launched i4i instances that we are going to have this year, we launched last year our 6th generation Intel instances, the M6i, R6i, and C6i platform in the compute space. So our constant evolution. I talked briefly about that the highest frequency in the cloud, those are also on our Intel instances as well. Those are our X2i EZN and M5ZN instances offer that 4.5 gigahertz frequency in the cloud here. So I don't want to leave out the fact I covered the i4i instances before in some depth, the X2i DN, X2i EDN, and X2i EZN instances. I'm going to talk briefly about each of them because those are our newest offerings here, combining that with the Intel processors. I want to mention that the 6th generation is on the Intel Ice Lake platform, for those who, if I didn't mention that a little bit earlier. So within this, I'm going to talk briefly about the X2i DN and X2i EDN instances. These instances are 2 variants. One has a 16:1 and one has a 32:1 gigabyte ratio. Pretty clear on the slides which one? Maybe not, but if you look to my left, your right, I have a second row of memory here on the X2i EDN instances. That represents the 32:1, and the X2i DN instances are the 16:1 ratio. So we're trying to make it pretty intuitive here in terms of that. These are our 3rd generation of processors. They offer a 50% better vCPU performance and a 75% faster memory than our previous generation X1 and X1E platforms. And if you're using the SAP side, we offer up to 65% additional performance on SAP instances. Pretty cool, right? So this talks to you a little bit about the innovation, talks to you about the performance, and our cost focus as well with that performance. Finally, we'll talk here about our X2i EZN instances. Pretty exciting instances here. These instances, just like some of the others, also have a little bit of focus on our EDA space. EDA is the electronic design automation. So for customers that are doing silicon development and want to do that development and testing in the cloud, the X2I EZN instances, we believe, offer you a great place to take a look here. These offer a large amount of memory here, and they have a 32:1 CPU ratio, similar to the ratio as well before, but they run up to an all-core turbo frequency of 4.5 gigahertz. This additional processor speed allows us to operate at a better price per performance ratio as well. As I can see here on the slide, we have about 55% better price per performance and 40% faster on X1E. We have customers here on X2I EZN that are our own Annapurna labs that have used these instances. We have Astra Labs as well that has worked on this. And I think everybody has heard about our announcement last year that NXP will start to transition their entire EDA work to the AWS cloud using a combination of the instances that I've talked about here. In addition, for those who are looking at the X2I EZN instances, we have published information as well with partnerships with some of the major EDA vendors, such as Cadence, Siemens EDA, and Cadence, Siemens, and Synopsys here. So next I'm going to talk about where we are with AMD and our partnership with AMD. Equally important to our offerings is this partnership with AMD. We started our partnership with AMD in 2018, and we are now offering our third generation of AMD instances. We started the introduction of these instances at reInvent last year in 2021 with the M6A instances. I'm going to talk more about those in the upcoming slide. I already covered our introduction of the HPC 6A instances, which it was part of my HPC section, and we'll cover the C6A instances. But I do want to give a highlight and a shout out to our existing instances, the 5th generation instances. The 5th generation AMD instances are currently available, and they operate using the 1st and 2nd generations of AMD's EPYC platform, the Rome and Naples generations. In addition, our AMD platform offers a 10% cost savings versus comparable x86 instances. So you have a cost savings here in addition to that performance as well that you can take a look at. So next thing I'm going to cover is the general purpose instances from AMD here. These are our M6A instances. The M6A instances launched last year at reInvent in November, and these represent a huge increase in performance to what we had on our prior 5th generation instances. Our M6A instances, we introduced 2 additional sizes. So we have a 24XL on our 5th generation instances. Our M6A instances have a 32 and a 48XL in addition to that 24. So talk about huge compute availability, right? In addition to that, the M6A instances offer a major improvement in performance. We doubled the EBS and networking bandwidth for customers, and we have improved our overall performance. Our price performance has increased by up to 35% on these, while still maintaining that 10% cost delta to the comparable x86 instances. The M6A are designed for the proper balance of memory and compute, that 4:1 ratio that we maintain on our M instance platforms. And they offer up to 80% higher web performance and 90% higher transcoding performance than the prior generation, 5th generation M5A instances. So our most recent introduction of the 6th generation platform happened this year, just a month or 2 ago, our C6A instances. Now, obviously, the C6A instances are what the HPC 6A instances are built on, but the C6 instances are targeted for customers that are looking for that ideal 2:1 compute to memory ratio. And the 3rd generation here has that twice as, has that memory, that improvement. We also offer the improvement on our EBS and networking bandwidth, and a 15% better price per performance than we had on the 5th generation platform, which were based on the Rome instances. So we talked a bit about where we came from with Intel and AMD, and now I want to talk about the innovation that AWS has delivered through our own silicon, and that's in our Graviton platform. Our Graviton processors, our Graviton 2 processors, I called that out on one of our first slides showing the introduction of our Graviton platform, excuse me, Graviton 2 started in 2020. Our Graviton 2 platform offers a 40% better price per performance for a broad range of workloads. Graviton is based off of the ARM architecture, as opposed to the Intel and AMD instances that are based off of the x86. That ARM architecture is something that you probably carry in every phone and a lot of other compute. Not something scary and easy to migrate over to as well. We also announced at reInvent a couple of additional instances, and I'm going to highlight them as we go forward. I talked briefly about the IM4GN instances over here on my left, your right, the IS4Gen instances, and I'm going to talk about the C7G instances as well, which are in preview right now, and if you're interested, you can apply to use that preview too. Customers such as Epic Games, DirecTV, Barracuda Networks, and Formula One have all used and leveraged these instances since we have launched Graviton 2. In addition, customers and families have leveraged our Nitro SSD platform, and they're seeing, I showed you the example of Splunk that's seeing up to 50% better performance in their search, but we're seeing on average between 25 to 50% better performance using those Nitro SSDs overall. This Nitro SSD and improving our low latency is a game changer, which is also really helpful in the Graviton space. So our innovation spans not just a discussion about the silicon on the CPU side, but also you combine that with our other innovation here on the SSD side. You have a memory and silicon innovation that delivers better performance and low latency. So the first instance to use the Graviton 3 processors that we'll launch is our C7G. Oh, what about C7G? C7G instances will be the best price per performance instances on the Amazon EC2 network. These instances will offer up to 64 vCPUs, 128 gigabytes of memory, and 30 gigabytes of network performance, in addition to 25 gigabytes of EBS performance. So you're going to get 50% additional bandwidth. And we also have messaging about the additional savings that we have on these processors and the efficiency that they deliver for those looking for a more sustainable and lower energy option as well, which is what our C7Gs and our Graviton family is starting to look at as well. So I covered today the introduction about Intel. I covered a little bit about where we are with AMD processors and highlight some of the Graviton processors and our architecture here. This is what is all built off of our Nitro instances. But I feel like I forgot something. A lot of you out there probably have a computer that might not be a PC that's based off of that x86, or you're doing workloads for different space. And that area that I want to cover was the introduction of our Mac OS. We launched our Mac OS a little while ago, our EC2 Mac instances, excuse me. We launched those at reInvent in 2020. And then in 2021, we talked about the next generation instances that should launch here in 2022. These are the EC2 M1 Mac instances based off of the latest generation of Apple's hardware. This is going to improve the build time, your download speeds, and scalability as well. These Mac instances have connections to over 175 of our AWS services. So the typical services that you use on the x86 and ARM architecture side, you can also use here on the Mac, on the M1 side as well. You access native Mac OS instances, and this is built off of that Nitro platform. So remember I talked about the additional performance we're able to deliver, the security that Nitro platform that delivers, all of that is included here in the M1 instances. As a note, these are also in preview as well right now. Okay, so we talked, first I gave you an overview of our compute space. Then I talked to you about our performance and how we deliver better performance to you. I talked a little bit about that cost and how I'm able to get price per performance involved. And I talked to you a little bit about security. I promise to finish up by talking about some of the accelerated workloads that we're going to offer in the cloud. So let's get started here. So beyond AMD and Intel and our Graviton ARM processors, we also deliver and partner with other partners, such as Xilinx, which is now an AMD company, NVIDIA, to deliver and develop our GPU platforms. Xilinx, we develop our FPGAs. And finally, our own AWS designed silicon on our Inferentia and Trainium platform. Let me talk to you about how these platforms and the new innovations that we have delivered within these platforms. So first, I'm going to talk about machine learning workloads. I divide these into two groups because most of our customers that I talk to work and look at either training or inference side. So I'm going to try to talk a little bit to you about the offerings that we have on Trainia and inference. But don't think that I'm crazy. We do include some of our training platforms are also equally good and performant at our inferencing. That's why that we see them over here. Last year, we launched our G5 instances. Those are the NVIDIA GPU-based instances. These are the G5G. We also introduced our G5G instances, which are Graviton. We partnered, our Graviton CPU with the NVIDIA GPU processors here. This is an NVIDIA A10G GPU. Our DL1 instances were also recently released. Those DL1 instances leverage Intel's Gaudi Habana labs, part of Intel. They each offer up to 32 gigabytes of memory and provide 40% better price per performance over comparable GPU-based inference instances. And those G5 instances that I talked about, the G5G, they're great for streaming games and delivering that to you. So if you have a huge platform that needs to stream games and expand quickly, that's what we can work on with our G5. And don't worry, I didn't forget, Trainium 1 is coming soon, and we're going to talk briefly about that as we go forward here. So, a little more about those G5G instances. I mentioned about streaming. Streaming here is delivered at 30% lower cost per stream, and these include the NVIDIA T4G GPUs, which provide that latest platform performance. It allows you to run Android games natively, and it talks here about PyTorch, usage of OpenGL, and TensorFlow, all key in the inferencing space. So, I want to then talk about our Trainium offering as well, finally. So we talked about Trainium 1, which we believe will happen here later in 2022. Trainium 1 builds off of our space here in the deep learning area. Trainium will offer the highest performance and most teraflops in the cloud. It will offer up to 800 gigabits per second in high performance EFA. That's 800 gigabytes per second of high performance EFA. Offers up to 8 terabytes of memory and has, as I said, the most teraflops. Trainium 1 is deployed using our EC2 Ultra clusters. So those Ultra clusters consist of tens of thousands of Trainium accelerators. So effectively giving you petabyte scale and non-blocking EFA networking. They serve as effectively a powerful supercomputer that is able to deliver performance to you. So today I covered for you our 15 years of innovation. I focused initially on the overall compute that we deliver, the breadth of that network that we offer. I talked to you briefly about our HPC instances, which take advantage of that compute. In addition to the other instances, I talked to you about the performance that we deliver, remembering that we offer up to 10% better performance than other competitors and all the way up to 25% on real-world workloads. I talked a bit about my focus and our focus on security. I introduced and talked to you about our Nitro TPM instances that offer you that. And I also talked to you about the end-to-end encryption that's offered throughout our overall instances. Our focus on security, I need to say this, is job zero at AWS. Security is key, and it is how we develop our entire architecture. I talked to you in each of those instances about the price per performance in particular, because our goal is to make sure as we innovate, we deliver the best possible price and performance. The key is teaming those up together to deliver that to our customers. And we're continuously innovating. Yeah, I talked to you about our Nitro SSDs that help reduce latency, overall latency. I talked to us about how that's impacted our i4i instances, excuse me. And I talked about where we're going with Graviton, specifically the C7G platform as we introduce that here, and even our Mac instances. And we talked as well about our partnership with Intel and how that is continuing. We've already continued to introduce new instances and our continued partnerships with AMD as well. The x86 architecture continues to form a massive portion of our total backbone here at the EC2 in our EC2 instances. And I talked to you about our accelerated compute and how we have delivered on that accelerated compute. We're going to continue to do that with the introduction of Trainium. We have our Inferentia platform that is out there, and we continue that with the Gaudi Habana partnership that we have and we've worked with Intel on. So I just want to say thank you to all of you, all of our customers and partners for coming out today and letting me talk to you briefly about where we're going with EC2 and the direction that we're headed. Before I conclude though, and here, I do want to just let you know that today is an opportunity to start your cloud journey here at AWS. And we encourage all of you to get engaged in our training and certification process here at AWS. You'll probably see some information about this throughout the day, but I'm probably your first session today, so I just wanted to take a couple minutes to just cover this topic. You can use our skill builder here to access our online learning center to make it easy to learn in the cloud. It offers over 500 plus scale classes. The objective here is to deliver learning to you where you want it and in a convenient way to you. With the guides below, you can also become AWS certified here. We offer 11 certifications right now, and I'd like to encourage all of you to consider becoming AWS certified as well. Not only will the certification help you, it will also give you a better idea and a better understanding as how to access our AWS instances. And it's a really great starting point. Using the certification, you will have hands-on tools to working with EC2 and to get started using the console account here. And you can scan one or both of the QR things, although it might be a little bit hard from back there, but you can use these to access this and access our guides on how to do this. So as a final note, part of our learning will help you with this can be done in an on-demand fashion or through our networking opportunities. So once again, I want to thank everybody for coming today. I'd like to thank you for this overview of EC2. If there are any questions that you might have, obviously in today's silent session forum, we can't exactly come up to me, but I'll meet folks out in the hallway if there are any questions that come up as a result. Thank you again, and thanks for coming out today. Enjoy the summit.